Alright, welcome to Substance Painter tutorial. So in this tutorial I'll talk a little bit about, the interface of Substance Painter, and we'll just go through the process of texturing our mug, and hopefully we'll hit all the main kind of tools that we can use in Substance Painter. So it is a texturing software, and this is it when you open it. It might look a little different to you. If I reset the UI, most likely will look something like this. But I like to move the layers around kind of for my own way of working. So we'll start with, just kind of getting into it right away. So the first thing we're going to have to do is say File, New, because we want a new project. This PBR metallic roughness alpha blend, the standard that comes up is okay. Then we have to select our document resolution. I'll just go 4K because I'm feeling high definition today. We have to select our file that we're going to be working on, and what we need to select is a low resolution model that we exported from ZBrush. And say open, and that's it. And now we import it. Everything else you can kind of leave as is and say okay. So now it imports this model. So you can see here on the left it is 3D view, and you can see on the right that's the UV view. So basically we can see our UVs, how they are laid out. So first thing I want to do is talk about, again, navigation. So Option and left click is to rotate. Option and middle mouse is to pan. And then Option and right click is zoom in and out. F is to center it or frame it. If you Option left click to rotate and press Shift, it's going to snap into orthographic views, kind of similar to ZBrush. Pretty handy. There's another element to here that we don't have in Maya or ZBrush, is if I press Shift and right click, then I am actually moving around light. So it's really nice to kind of see that for little texture, kind of delicate textures, and to see what we're actually doing. And if I click over here to display settings, I can see that these are my environment settings. So actually, if I toggle the opacity all the way up and turn off the blur, I can see what environment is kind of giving me this light. And here I can also rotate it, so I can see basically what happens when I'm rotating it, which is pretty cool. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back down. So yeah, that's pretty nice. You can also switch to different environments over here, but I'm just going to stay with the default one for now, so I'm going to turn it back off. So that's over here. So then here in the texture set list up here, that is where your material is. So what that means is basically however many different materials your model has is however many different materials are going to show up here. So if I had a model that has multiple components to it, I would have to make sure that I create different materials for them in Maya or Blender, because when I import them in here, that's how kind of Substance is gonna divide your model into the different materials. So since the mug only has one material, now we have the one material right here. So that's that. Then the layers, that is honestly really kind of similar to Photoshop. You work in layers, and different paint layers kind of add up and create your texture here. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. This properties paint layer, I actually really usually like to put on this side. So this is basically where my brush settings are, where my alpha settings are, and then where my stencil settings are if I have a stencil, or material settings. So yeah, so I like to have it kind of up on this side. And the assets, which I'll talk about next, I like to put on the bottom. So assets, basically, I mean, you have a bunch of different materials here that you can honestly just click and drag and they're gonna show up on your model. So this one was stylized natural ground, right? So I'm gonna Command Z to get out of that. So yeah, you can click and drag and kind of get started with the material pretty easily, which is pretty cool. Then, you know, you can just kind of toggle through here. There's different generators, different kind of, what are these? Filters, brushes. The brushes are a big one, so you can actually have like a brush that looks like pretty much anything here. For example, if I take this one and start painting on it, it kind of populates everywhere. So yeah, then there's textures. So we'll use this one for example. A fingerprint, which is pretty funny. But yeah. So this is kind of the interface. The first thing we need to do is we need to actually get the details from our high resolution model that we worked really hard on. So if we click up here, a little croissant, that is the texture baking kind of hub. And if we click right here, mesh map settings, we can actually load our high definition model in here. So high definition, open, and that's basically going to be a source data for a lot of the maps. And then right here we can see what kind of maps are going to be baked for us. I'm just going to stick with the just original settings, and I'm going to say bake selected textures. And now it's finished baking, and so I can say, okay, let's return to the paint mode. And now we see that we can see the normal data from our high resolution mesh on our low resolution mesh. So we still have a very low resolution mesh that we see all these details on. And these details are a normal map. So up here we can just see the normal map. And look at that. Wow, that's pretty freaking cool. Let's get to texturing our mug. So the first thing I want to do is set the base kind of color. So similarly with sculpting and everything, we kind of start from the base up. So starting with big strokes, ending with little details. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this layer. I'm going to create something that's called a fill layer. A fill layer is going to basically impact your whole object. So if I change the color on this fill layer, it's going to change the color for the whole object, right? So for my object, I would like to set the color at, you know, not completely just gray, but a little kind of yellowish, like that, you know, because my mug is not completely just gray or white. Let's see how it looks. Pretty neat. I might just go just a little darker, like that, because nothing is really like pure white, especially something that's a little older. So I am, yeah, I would say pretty happy with this. Maybe just a touch lower, like that. Cool. So that's my base color. Height basically refers to literal like texture height, which we're not gonna use right now because it's a base color. Rough is roughness. So also, if you click right here, that's gonna add or subtract kind of your material properties. So roughness, my mug is not so rough, so I'm going to go ahead and, you know, make it pretty reflective, kind of like this. All right, for the base of it, right? Metallic, it is not metallic, so I'm gonna turn that off. If I did want to make it metallic, it's as easy as this, you know, to make something a base of a metal. So I'm going to turn that off, normal off, opacity off, and emission off. So now actually I only have color and roughness for my base, which is all I need. And I can name my layer base. Cool. Then moving on, I'm thinking, looking at this mug, and I'm thinking, you know, there's like, I don't know if you guys know, like when you have ceramic materials or ceramic mugs and stuff, they kind of have little tiny cracks in them sometimes, like as they get older. So I want to kind of try to get that in here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create yet another fill layer, but watch what happens. When I create a fill layer, it overrides completely what happened on the bottom, right? And because I don't want it to override what happens on my base layer, I'm going to go ahead and right click and say add black mask. Once I add a black mask, it looks like there's nothing there anymore. The layer has kind of disappeared because everything is black. So now it's our kind of job to fill in this mask with whatever we want to fill it in with, right? So in our case, it's going to be cracks. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and set the color of this layer to bright red, so that whenever we kind of fill in the mask, we'll see red in there. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I right click and I say add generator. So generators are really cool. There's a couple of ones that pop up right away. I mean, there's dirt, light, metal, edge wear, curvature. Really cool. I encourage you guys to kind of explore those on your own. So this dirt one is, really nice. Sorry, that's Lupin playing. Stop it. Give. Thank you. So sorry about that. So yeah, definitely think about this. Try different generators out. But for us, we're actually gonna go ahead. I already know what we need. So we need cells 3. So if I click on it, it looks okay. Like now, everything is covered. So my mask turned white. It's all completely red. So what I'm gonna say is, okay, well, try to invert this and see. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. And if I set the balance lower and lower, we can see now. Look at that. There's our cells. They kind of look like little cracks, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and mess around with this balance setting. Everything's procedural, which is really cool. So it's like kind of covering everywhere around the mug, right? Without much effort. So I'm going to, kind of mess with the noise parameters, like how big do I want these to be? I want them to be quite small. Disorder as well. So see, you can really customize these to however you like. So hardness as well, so see how kind of becomes harder or softer. I'm gonna go ahead and stay somewhere in the middle, but the truth is I don't really need them to be red. So the cool thing about Substance Painter is that it's all procedural, so you can go back into our color, and I'm gonna go ahead and actually change the color. I'm gonna change it to just a little more gray than my mug, so that it looks like little cracks. And I'm also going to change my roughness, so I'm gonna make it a little rougher than the rest of the mug, so that it kind of signifies that it's been wearing down. So that's nice. I'm quite happy with that. I could sit here and twiddle with the settings for forever, but I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. So that's nice. There's some cracks. Really nice. I'm going to name this layer cracks. Cracks. Next, I'm gonna add some dirt, kind of like same kind of thing, wear and tear. I'm gonna add some dirt in the crevices, and it could take me forever if I kind of try to paint the dirt, but I can go ahead and add another fill layer, add another black mask to the layer, and add a generator to the black mask. And I'm going to go ahead and add the dirt generator. Right. Same thing. Can't really see anything because our base color is still gray, so I'm going to go ahead and again turn it to red, and now we can see, wow, there is in fact a lot of dirt here. So I'm going to go back to my mask, back to my generator here, and with the generators there's a lot more that you can kind of control, right? So now I'm kind of paying attention to just the main face of the mug here. I can control the dirt level pretty precisely. I can control the contrast, so how contrasty it is. I can control the grunge amount, so how grungy it is actually. Really play around with these settings. Sometimes, you can go into micro details, but I wouldn't. But yeah, just play around. A lot of it is just experimentation. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just, you know, adjust it to my liking. And the cool thing is that it kind of goes into crevices of things, right? So it's mostly in crevices, which is kind of realistic, right? So a lot of dirt would, over time, kind of collect in the crevices, but it's going to be very, very mild. So it's not going to be actually a lot of dirt on your cup after years and years because you wash it, hopefully. So yeah, I think I like this right here, just, you know, for the sake of moving on pretty quickly. But I'm gonna go ahead and same thing, change the color back to something that is more realistic. I'm gonna change the color to, you know, something like this, close to my main color. Something just looks a little dirty, you know, looks like has some history. And so now I'm happy with my color. It's pretty good. And then same thing, I don't need height, I don't need metal, emission, or opacity, or normal map, but I do need the roughness. So I would say that the roughness is going to be just a little bit more, you know, than the mug. You can really kind of see by moving the light and stuff how the roughness is really impacting. Yeah, now you can see kind of how it is rougher in places. One thing though that I notice is that the inside of the mug is completely dirty because Substance Painter thinks that that is, you know, a big crevice that it needs to fill out with this kind of generator. So this is actually good for us. So what we can do is we can actually add, right click on the mask and add paint layer. So that paint layer, if I click in it, it's just gonna be grayscale, 1 to 0. 1 means we're taking away from the mask, and 0 means we're kind of adding to the mask. So I'm going to increase my size of the brush up here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and go all the way to 0, so it's black again, basically. And I'm gonna go ahead and color this in. So you can color in on your UVs, or you can color in on your 3D viewport. So here we can see it kind of comes in handy to know what your UVs are, because then you can kind of color it from here. You can also color it straight in the viewport, which is also handy sometimes. I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, remove stuff from here. Let's see, it's pretty dirty right here. But I'm gonna show you guys something else too. So here's the alpha, and that means basically the shape of your brush. So now it is just a circle. Here's a bunch of alphas of different brushes that we could use to kind of, you know, still take away material, but do it with class. So let me see what kind of brush we could choose. Maybe let's choose a dirt brush. And let's take away dirt with the dirt brush. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my pen and just, you know, kind of color, basically take away here. This right here controls your size with the brush pressure. So I'm gonna turn that off so that the size is always gonna be the same, because I just need to remove some dirt, just a little. Another thing that is good to know is flow right here. So flow of a 50 basically means that I don't remove everything at the same time. So the lower the flow is, you can kind of see the less material you remove with one stroke. The higher the flow is, the more aggressive your brush is. So it kind of removes a lot of material or color at this, in this case. So I'm actually having kind of a medium flow, and just, you know, kind of going in here even, and kind of getting rid of some of that dirt. Not all of it, because, you know, thinking about a handle, you know, you would have quite a lot of dirt on a handle. that's built up over time. But, you know, kind of just subtly removing things. Real nice. Yeah, okay. So like this. That's pretty nice. So one other thing now that I'm thinking is, okay, I actually missed a step because our llama mug actually has paint. Right, the golden eyes and a golden muzzle. I'm gonna add another fill layer and I'm gonna place it right here just above the base. And I'm gonna add the black mask to it, but before I do, I just want to make sure that I get the color right. So I'm gonna go ahead over here, put the color to something like this. This time I do want the metal. I do want it to be completely metallic because it looks golden, right? And I want the roughness to go really down. So it's almost super shiny, right? And I don't need height. I don't need, oh sorry, I do need metal. I don't need normal. I just need base color, metal, and roughness. So I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, this looks pretty good. So now I can add a black mask and that's gonna basically take it all away. And I can add a paint layer. Right click on the mask and add a paint layer. And I'm gonna go ahead and go back to my previous alpha, which was, you know, just I was scrolling down and I found it right here. Right, so now when I paint, it looks like I'm uncovering gold. Almost. But yeah, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and turn on the flow, so the size flow, so it's like the harder I press, the thicker it is. And I'm just gonna go ahead and roughly, you know, roughly line this out. And please don't judge me, I'm kind of, you know, trying to do this quick and dirty. And you can see that the material qualities, oh geez, transfer. So it's very metallic, right? And it's golden and it's very shiny, which is exactly what we need, and that's because of that black mask. So this kind of goes underneath. Nice. And it goes back up to the top here. Nice. It's pretty jagged, but you know, we can fix it up really quickly. And last but not least, the eyes. Actually, that's not last. And the ears just also have a little bit of gold in them. The ear and the eye. A little daintier. Ah. Just like that. Well, that's really bad. Let's see, up here. Boom. That's a little better. So, yeah, now we've added our gold. And you can see how it's impacted by all of the layers that come from above it, right? So it's a little chipped kind of, but we can take it to the next level as well. So by using a different alpha, so if I decide to use like dirt blurry dense, right? And then I take the grayscale all the way back to 0, and now I start painting on it, right? With this, it's gonna start taking away material back, right? So let me increase the size. Oh, it's really big. And decrease the flow. And I'm just gonna, you know, click here and there so that it's looks like, you know, it's kind of been removed a little, some wear and tear through the time. So you can see how you can make different kinds of effects just with brushes. Yeah, so a lot of layers. That's basically, layers are your best friend. Now we have a little bit of dirt, a little bit of cracks, a layer of our you know, the golden stuff. And now I want to show you another generator. It's called the grunge generator. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that we've been doing. Add a black mask to a fill layer and add generator. And look for grunge wiped. Right here, this one. If you hover over it, you can see how it looks like. Right, let me change the color again so you can see how it looks wiped. It almost looks like somebody was brushing it with like a sponge, right? And left these marks or something, or just, you know, brushing it somehow. So yeah, so this is just, you know, kind of to show you that you could, for example, if you wanted to, you could add height to this. So see how that changes completely? So let's say somebody brushed this mug with a brush stroke of Brat Summer Green, for example. Well, that's kind of heavy on the eyes. And let's say, okay, let's stick maybe with kind of a nice pink. Right? And you have some height on it because it is a brush stroke, and it's really liquidy, and so it's very, very not rough, for example, right? And maybe you want it to be metallic. I don't know. Maybe it's a metallic brushed paint or something, you know? So you can kind of start experimenting with different textures, different generators. You know, it looks kind of crazy. But one thing you need to keep in mind is that here your UV lines are going to be showing. You can see that's where our UVs are. So that's where kind of our texture starts tiling almost. So we can try and see if we can do a triplanar projection. And if that would fix it. Not quite. So we're just going to keep it at the UV projection. But yeah. And so the last thing that I want to do, I'm probably going to turn this layer off. The last thing I want to do is kind of show you our mug actually has writing on the bottom of it. So a cool thing you can do is you can get stencils and import stencils into Substance Painter and kind of use those as a guide for coloring. So the way you do it is you go to File, and we're going to use the stencil that I have a tutorial on how to make. It's basically I took an image of the bottom of the mug and I cut out the writing, and I'm now going to project it back on the mug. So I'm going to go to File, Import Resources, and I'm going to just click and drag my mug stencil, and I'm going to go ahead and say that it is an alpha. Okay, or no, it is a texture, and I'm going to go ahead and import it. So here it is right there. I'm going to create a paint layer this time, and I have my mug stencil here, and I'm going to go ahead and go right here to projection. So we're going to project this mug. So I have it selected, so we're going to project that on our mug. So now if we kind of start painting, we can see that it is projected on a mug. If we move the mug, the stencil stays how it was. So that's something to keep in mind. So now it kind of, you know, paints directly on it. So I'm going to go ahead and snap the mug in the bottom view, and to move the stencil you have to press S, and to rotate it you press left click. Oh. To rotate you press left click, press S, left click. To zoom it you press S and right click. So I'm going to right click and zoom out just a touch, and now I feel like it's in a nice place. So I'm going with my projection, and I'm going to go ahead and just, you know, paint this on. Nice. I'm going to go out of my stencil mode, and there we go. I have a little stencil of my mug. So that's something that you can also kind of keep in mind, that you can do many different things with these you know, because yeah, if you select, there's many different stencils you can kind of paint on, and yeah, I would encourage you guys to watch more Substance Painter tutorials to kind of get more in depth for your own texturing projects, you know, but this is kind of all we're gonna cover today. So let's put on our cool metallic brush texture for the end, but I'm gonna take it off. The last thing we want to cover is exporting. So now we've had this beautiful model that is all textured, and how do we export it? That's a good question. So we go into File, Export Textures, and basically we're going to be exporting the textures because we're going to be applying them to our low resolution model anyways. So we just need to export the textures. So we go ahead and go to Output Templates, and we have different, right? So for Arnold, which is in Maya, we can export Arnold AI Standard. For Blender, we can export Principled BSDF, right? So depending on what you are working with, you can either click Arnold or Blender. I'm gonna go ahead and do Arnold this time, so you can see that it's gonna export a color, metallic, roughness, normal, height, and emissive. I don't need emissive because we don't have really any emission in this object, so I'm just going to go ahead and click it off. So in the list of exports, we can see, all right, so we have a base color, an emissive color, height, metallic, normal, and roughness. Before we click export, in settings, we can make sure to see where we're exporting to. So I'm going to go ahead and find my find my folder, and I'm gonna just export it into Substance. So my file type is gonna be PNG, and yeah, so let's see, let's press export. Okay, it's done. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you about what to do with the exported textures, how to apply them to your models, and how to render your models next.